The beauty of the Linocut, what I like very much about it, is that it's relatively inexpensive. It doesn't require a lot of materials, and really it's you and the lino and what you bring to it. When I start with an image like this, I will go through several different renditions, pulling out, simplifying, abstracting, emphasizing the particular forms and images that I need to express the particular idea in mind. I pulled out these two preliminary drawings. These are two of the last after, like I said, several or 8 renditions. My main aim at the end is to reduce everything down to the bare essentials and basically pull out and abstract the things that matter, and therefore get closer to my mental image of the particular image that I had in mind, and one that is closer to the content and the context of the subject matter. These are the tools that I use for my cutting, and I've got, again, as you can see here, a range of gouges, very, very fine for fine work, and then the scalpel for absolutely precise edging and cutting along the sides and particular shapes there. The lino that I use, as you see here, is basically made from compressed cork and linseed oil. It's the same lino that they used in the Grosvenor School of Modern Art in the 1920s and 30s for their lino cuts. Once I've cut the blocks, on goes to the actual printing of the blocks themselves. And what I use here is gelatine rolls. They're great because they get into all of the grooves. I use standard oil colors rather than printing inks or proofing inks, because this is a technique I learned from Sybil Andrews, who was one of the founding members of the Grosvenor School, and there was a technique that they've used, which was taught to them by Claude Flight. I have a sample of Japanese mulberry papers here. The problem with the oil colors, it tends to bleed. As you notice here, where you see the yellowing, where the oil is bleeding and staining the paper itself, which tells me right away that I need a stronger paper, more fibrous paper, that will actually take the oil color itself. When you consider that you're applying 3 or 4 different colors on top of one individual piece of paper. Here's an example of obviously too absorbent paper. So I go through the process of testing. This one here takes the color very well. You see no bleeding. I have my, what I consider star papers, and I normally mark them as which ones work and which ones don't. As you notice here, there's quite a few examples of papers used, but there's perhaps 2 or 3 papers that I can actually use. Then the next step comes into taking my blocks, putting them down registration-wise, and then using this Japanese baren made from bamboo leaves. What it tends to do here is it tends to flatten the paper itself so that it's even all over, because if it's slightly buckled and I press down without it, you end up getting a double inking, which is a disaster basically. Then I use a stainless steel spoon, this particular type, which is great because it's very wide to get enough pressure to pick up the color itself. And one that I made, which is made from faux ivory, and it's a basically tool that I use to get precision for my lines for the smaller pieces. The paper itself, which is a Japanese mulberry paper made from the mulberry bark itself. The beauty of the Japanese mulberry paper is that the fibers are incredibly strong, very woolly and very, very strong, as I'm pulling this out slightly, as you can see. And they need to be when you are using up to 4 or 5 blocks. It takes a lot of rubbing once it's down on the block itself, a lot of rubbing, a lot of pressure put on these blocks and layering of 3 or 4 different colors. And this is incredible paper. It has the strength and the durability needed. what I'm trying to do here is, what I normally do is kind of make a line near enough to the actual line that I need, which is the finalized line, and then sort of clear around, and then use a knife at the end, an X-Acto knife, and I get that really precise line that for the finishing effect. So this is just basically called, just clearing the block away. Okay, what else do I think I need to? What I have here is a few of my proofs. After I finish the print itself, my next step is to proof it, to check the colors, that they're all sequenced and that they all fit, and more than that, if there's any overlap or anything that needs to be cut away or something needs to be added. And this can take a long time. Normally it takes several proofings in order to get the print right. This is one of the very first. Here I want to point out all these lines here suggest changes. For instance, where the red slightly overlap and extends too further out, and that needs to be removed. And then subtle things here. What I have here are these really solid, strong, bold, black outlines. And what I tend to do in this case is, well, I think in some cases they're relevant, and in other cases I need to suggest highlights, like I've suggested here on the hair, suggest a highlight here, as pointed out here on the kneecap there. It's again to get a sense of roundness and to take away that sense of flatness, and more of a three-dimensional feel towards the figure. Now, this is my second one. Normally when I print them quite quickly. I'm not so much worried about reflex. It's just a matter of finding the registration is right and about my choice of color. Here I realized that the overall red wasn't working because I wanted the strength of red down here, and I wanted the figures to be the focal point. And so there I finally decided in this one to use, this is a third attempt, orange. And in this case you can actually see it differentiates the strong of the red and spotlights with the color used here, the figures. And that these are the major part of the image itself and the reason for the print. Secondary here, I realized that I had a strong wedge of color here. I thought to co-balance with the sky forms or formations. And I realized that it was again taken away from these central figures, and more than that, this sense of light, which gave to me a sense of the rhythms and the flow of the movements of the figure here, and so that was removed. And finally, this is the final result. Here I have the strength of the red needed and the light of the orange here picking up on the diver, which was that which I intended, and had broken the solid mass of black, or I don't use a black, I use what I call a Prussian, which is a incredibly blue black, which gives more depth. And what I have achieved by that is a sense of roundness, the sculptural side that I was looking for. And once I've achieved and taken as far as I can, comes the signing of the edition, and it's finished. What I really like about when I'm inking these blocks, especially when they're new, you've got the sort of dull grey of the lino, and once you put these glorious strong colours on, it brings it to life, and and you see all the wonderful patterns and designs that been cut away, and it's rather thrilling, really. There we are, a little bit on this side, just to get rid of the railway lines from the end of the roller, and that looks fine. Make sure that they right in the corner for the registration to help for each block to line up. There we are. And sometimes you need a real bit of elbow grease to really pick up the colour before you use the spade to do the final edging. It's rather exciting too to see the image start to show through the paper, which helps when you're actually printing and picking up the colour, because you can actually see where you need to apply the pressure to pick up these shapes from the surfaces. And there we are. And now I'll pick it up and see how it's coming along. And now here, where I want it quite strong, I want the blue quite strong, and then I want to graduate it up to keep it lighter on the top, so that you get that, the higher you got, the more of the lightness, the stronger contrast. So this will take probably another 2 more inkings just to get the strength that I need for the lower bit. So it's quite a long process even to do one block. It might take me an hour just to do one to get it right. Look at how see what I mean about the dark block being so strong and saturating the paper. It's right into the fibers. It's going sort of really meshed with the fibers. It's incredible. This paper can take so much wear and tear, really. I have a real respect for this paper as well. If I want to retain the more subtle gradations in a particular section or a shape, I work around the sides slightly, very gently around the sides, and then put a bit sharp pressure to create a sharp edge, and then basically don't touch the middle, and then if I hopefully turn it over, I've retained the gradations. Now I'm just going to see how I last side go. Oh, it is officially finished. Okay. Work down the floor.